All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are digging into something absolutely huge, the architecture of faith. What is it that draws us in? How does it actually work? And maybe most importantly, what happens when those structures we build around it start to fall apart? Okay, so let's just jump right in with the big, obvious question, right? In our modern world, with all its science and tech and information at our fingertips, why are places like churches, temples, and mosques still such a massive part of so many people's lives? Well, the thing is, the answer isn't just one thing. It's not some lightning bolt moment of belief. It's layered. And it really starts with some very basic human needs we all have: connection, a sense of meaning, and a little bit of structure.
Think about it. We're pulled into these communities for all sorts of powerful reasons. It might be about finding your tribe, people who share your values. Or maybe you're looking for a framework that makes sense of life's chaos. It could be a source of moral guidance, a way to connect with your family's history, or even a super personal search for something sacred.
And this right here is a really fascinating point. For a lot of people, belonging actually comes before belief. That social connection, that feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself, that's often the real anchor. The specific beliefs, the doctrines, a lot of times that comes after you've already found your community. Okay, so let's peel back another layer. If those are the needs we're trying to meet, then you can start to think about religion in a totally different way, not just as a set of beliefs, but as a kind of human technology, a really powerful tool that we've been engineering for thousands of years to help us make sense of the world. So how does this technology work? Well, at its core, it's all about mediation. It acts like a bridge. It uses things we can touch and see, like stories, rituals, symbols, to connect our small, finite minds with this huge, infinite reality. Whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, transcendent truth, it's the bridge. And this is so smart because it plugs right into how our brains are wired. Our brains are basically meaning-making machines, right? We're built to spot patterns, to guess at someone's intention, and to look for a reason behind things instead of just seeing randomness. Religion comes along and offers this incredible, ready-made framework for all those big why questions. For most of human history, religious institutions were basically the operating system for society. Seriously, they provided the moral codes, they were the schools, the courts, the welfare system. They were the emotional stabilizers in a really uncertain world, organizing all of life's huge, scary questions into a system you could actually navigate. But what happens when that technology, the institution itself, starts to bug out, when it starts to fail? This is where things get really tense, and it's where people start to draw a line between their personal faith in the organized religion that's supposed to hold it. And here's the heart of the conflict, laid out right here. An institution that's meant to nurture your faith, it starts to fail when it uses fear to keep people in line. It fails when it demands blind obedience instead of valuing your conscience, or when it shuts down questions instead of helping you explore them. And man, it fails completely when the institution itself becomes more important than the God or the ideal it was supposed to be serving in the first place. You can see this playing out so powerfully in places like Nigeria. After colonialism tore apart the traditional social and spiritual fabric, the church stepped in to fill that void. But that created this intense dependency, which makes it incredibly hard for people to speak out against the institution, even when there's clear exploitation happening. And this explains something we see all the time: people walking away from church, but not from their faith. They're making a very clear distinction. That personal, spiritual experience, that connection to something bigger, they realize it doesn't belong to some flawed human institution. It's theirs. It's personal. Okay, so this split between the institution and personal faith, this brings us right to the philosophical heart of the matter, to the core of belief itself. And here it is. The ultimate critique. Is God just made up? A projection of all our hopes and fears out onto the universe? Well, the answer here is a little more complex. The idea of projection might explain the form God takes, the specific images and stories we use, but it doesn't really explain the impulse itself, that universal feeling that there is something more out there. What's really interesting is that as faith gets deeper, it often changes. That loud, absolute certainty you might have at the beginning, it can fade into something much quieter, a kind of faith that's more comfortable with mystery and even with doubt. It's like a realization that simple, easy answers just can't contain a reality that's truly profound. And this brings us to what might be the most important metaphor in this whole explainer. Religion is the map. God, or whatever you call ultimate reality, is the territory. Now, maps are essential, right? They're guides made by people who walked the path before us. But the goal is always the territory, not the map. And worshiping the map, confusing it for the real thing, well, that's missing the whole point of the journey.
So in the end, maybe the reason we seek religion isn't because God is so far away, but because being human is just hard. It sticks around because it speaks to the things that keep us up at night. How do we find meaning when we suffer? Is there hope when we face death? How do we belong when the world feels so broken? These are the kinds of needs that our tech and our politics, well, they often just can't touch.
And that leaves us with the final and maybe the most important question of all. The real question isn't why do people go to church? The real question is, what kind of humans does the church produce? Because the true test of any belief system isn't how many people show up or how old its doctrines are. It's the impact it has on us. Does it help us become more compassionate, more just, more humble, more whole people? That, in the end, is the only question that truly matters.